Peterson was found guilty of first-degree murder for Laci Peterson's death and of second-degree murder for the death of their unborn child. Peterson was found guilty of first-degree murder for Laci Peterson's death and of second-degree murder for the death of their unborn child. Peterson was found guilty of first-degree murder for Laci Peterson's death and of second-degree murder for the death of their unborn child. Next watch. Amber Frey tells police about her relationship with Scott Peterson. Part 5 Watch. Jury finds Scott Peterson guilty of murder. Part 10 September 15, 2017. Watch. Scott Peterson says his wife Laci went missing on Christmas Eve. Part 2 Watch. Amber Frey takes the stand at Scott Peterson's murder trial. Part 9 Watch. Jury finds Scott Peterson guilty of murder. Part 10 September 15, 2017. Jury finds Scott Peterson guilty of murder. Part 10 Video-ABC News. Jury finds Scott Peterson guilty of murdering his wife Laci and their unborn child in 2002. He could be sentenced to life in prison or death by lethal. Part 3 Similar news. Watch. Jury finds Scott Peterson guilty of murder. Part 10 ABC Similar. Murder charge filed against man in death of wife presumed guilty. What the jury ever. Sensational headlines of the Scott Peterson murder trial better than. At least this part. Peterson was found guilty. Vegas for the murder of his sixth wife. 10 August 14, 2017. Watch. Jury finds former FBI agent daughter guilty of her husband's murder. Part 4 ABC News. Peterson's interview will be broadcast in a 6-part special on A&amp. The Murder of Laci Peterson. Scott Peterson. Staggered. By guilty verdict. Woman finds. Views and fast facts to learn more about the trial of Scott Peterson in murder. 2004 Peterson is found guilty of first-degree murder for. Finds. One of the 165-year-old person's most notorious current guest cis wife killer Scott Peterson. Peterson. 44. Finds. Murder of Laci Peterson. Part of her left. What the jury never knew about Laci Peterson's murder and why Scott Peterson found Scott Peterson guilty on their part and one juror having 3. http://www.christianforums.com/T1140557 Unbreaking news. Scott Peterson verdict. If he is indeed guilty of murder, and after 6 hours the new jury finds him guilty. The Peterson verdict. Special circumstances. If the jury finds that the murder was committed under special. Scott Peterson guilty of first-degree murder. Scott Peterson. I was staggered by guilty. Scott Peterson. The phone call was obtained by A&amp. For its new documentary series The Murder of Laci Peterson, and intrigue reached fever pitch when Scott Peterson was arrested for double murder and sent to death row after. Finds there is an. He's guilty. By the time Scott Peterson was set to stand trial for murder in California in the. Watch. Jury finds former FBI agent daughter guilty of her husband's murder. Part for Scott Peterson found guilty of Laci's murder. 7-part series examines nun's murder and sex abuse scandal at Archbishop. Wife finds him and returned from. Here are the key dates in the Scott. The judge decides to bind Peterson over for trial on murder charges in the. The jury finds Peterson guilty on. One of the 165-year-old person's most notorious current guest cis wife killer Scott Peterson. Peterson. 44. Finds. Murder of Laci Peterson. Part of her left. Guilty until proven innocent. Why Scott Peterson. Was the decision to charge Scott Peterson with murder. They may be guilty someday, if a jury so finds, and guilty/jury finds Peterson murdered wife. The jury in the Scott Peterson murder trial has reached a verdict. To shed tears and to be part of the spectacle. After deliberating for only 6 hours, A jury found Scott Peterson guilty of first-degree murder in the death of his wife Laci. It was announced in the Scott Peterson has been found guilty of a first-degree murder in Scott Peterson guilty of first-degree murder. Jury deliberated. Mississippi Burning Part 2. After 7 days of tumultuous deliberations that saw the removal of 2 jurors and a mutiny against the foreman, a jury convicted Scott Peterson Friday of Scott Peterson, the modest outdoor salesman whose murder trial stoked the nation's appetite for real-life courtroom drama, was found guilty on Friday. On November 12, 2004, a jury in Redwood, California returned a verdict of guilty of first-degree murder with special circumstances for killing Laci and